Hi everyone, so I'm going to share with you now a really good communication tool that I learnt many years ago when I was in my people development role. And we used to use this all the time during meetings, and it made an incredible difference to the clarity between people describing the situation or a problem that they might have had in the workplace. So this is something that you can use in any scenario in your life, so not just in relationships. It can be at work, as I said, in meeting situations, it can be with friends. It's about all those interactions that you have with people in your life. But obviously relationships are very important to us and they can be very emotive. So this is where this dartboard technique is going to really come into its own, because if you really think about situations in your relationships where there has been misunderstanding, it's very common, and actually misunderstanding is the root cause of most conflict in all your relationships. So I'd like to share with you this dartboard technique now, and in the diagram that you can see, this is a dartboard that you will be familiar with, and the aim of the game is to get in the middle at the bullseye, so get your darts in the middle. So what we're going to be doing is using this dartboard and the three outer rings to mark how closely we are able to reflect back to somebody what we think we have heard them say. So in a perfect scenario, somebody has described how they are feeling or a problem to you, and when you reflect back what you think you have heard, you are hoping to get the bullseye in the middle, which means you accurately describe back what you think they have said. Now, I'll warn you now, it's very unusual to get the bullseye first of all, but well done if you have. Usually people land in the first ring or the second ring or the outer ring where those numbers are in the black outer ring. That's more common. So when you ask somebody to describe how they are feeling within your relationship, there may be an issue or a problem that you're both experiencing, and you say, well, look, talk to me about this. Describe to me how you're feeling. They will then speak, describe the situation, and then you need to take a proactive role here, and you need to say, okay, thank you. So what I think I have heard you say is ... So you will then describe in your own words and your own interpretation what you think they have said. You say it back to them, you recall it in your own words, and then they will say, probably, yeah, you've absolutely got it. I feel really heard. I feel really understood. That's when you've got the bullseye, so well done. More than likely, they will say, well, yeah, you've understood bits of it, but you've not completely recalled what I'm trying to describe to you. So that might suggest that you're in the inner ring or the second ring. But if they reply to you and say, no, you've got completely the wrong end of the stick here, then you're in that outer ring where the numbers are on the black outer ring. So you can see there are these three different levels. So you're aiming for the bullseye, the dart's in the middle, but more than often we all land in one of the other three rings around the outside of the bullseye. So the aim is that you then try again. You say, okay, just describe a bit more to me how you feel about this situation. You listen, and then you have another go. You say, okay, so is this what you said? I think, You again say it in your own words, and then you wait for their response. Hopefully, on a second go, you get to the bullseye or the inner ring. So you can see that it might take 3 attempts. It might take 4 attempts, depending on the complexity of the situation they are describing. Now, when we use this in our people development team, when we were working with other teams to try and improve their efficiency, we really found that this was incredibly powerful, because we all make huge assumptions about what we think somebody has said. This is because our language is really very ambiguous for a start. Words can mean different things to different people, and everyone has a different perspective, and that's dependent on how they were brought up, their programming from parenting, their culture, their society. So we all have different perspectives of certain words and phrases. So this is why this tool is so powerful. It's forcing us to reflect and mirror and recall back to the person describing how they feel or a situation, and try and get as close as we can to that bullseye. Now, it seems simple, I know, this model, but it is so, so powerful. I really want to impress that upon you all. But what you must do is start using this every day if you can, in all your interactions. Even if you've gone to the park with a friend to walk the dog and they're describing a situation to you. You know, you may not be personally involved, which makes it a lot easier than when you're in a relationship with somebody. So they may be describing their house move and how they felt about it. So you could practice and you could say, gosh, that's really interesting. So what I've heard from you is that it's taken a long time for you to get viewings, and it's really frustrating that, you know, you're having to clean up the house every time you have a viewing, and etc., etc. And then what you will find is that person feels really heard. They then feel that you're really on their wavelength, and that connection between you and that friend will improve. So you can see how this is so important in your personal relationships, because by allowing your partner to see, one, that you're taking the effort to reflect back to them what you think you have heard them say, that gains trust and respect. It also means that they feel heard. And this is so, so important to build that emotional bank account with each other within your relationship. So please practice this. Practice this in familiar territory first with friends and family, and then start using it within your relationship when you feel really proficient at recalling back what you think somebody has said. Now, what you may find is some people may respond and think it's a little bit different, it's a little bit strange, because they're hearing a different reflection technique from you, or maybe you don't actually do that at all with friends or people at the moment. So they might think, this is a bit different. So be prepared that you may get a slightly different response or reaction or body language from people, but persevere, because this is with all good intention. So always seek first to understand and then be understood yourself. I really love that phrase, because what it says is that we're actually going to use unconditional regard for others, and we're going to give them our time and space and attention so that we understand them first. So I think that's something really lovely to do in conjunction with this model. So there are lots of ways that you can phrase using this model. So I'll give you some examples. So you could say, so I'm really interested in what you've just said. Let me just double check back what I think I've heard. You could say it just purely like that, or you could be more subtle and just say, so what I think I've heard you say is, or you could say, is this right then that you, You could be more direct, and we certainly did this in our team meetings in people development with other teams. We would actually be really transparent, and we'd use the dartboard numbers. We'd say, so say somebody was describing a problem in the workplace, or something that wasn't going quite right, and then somebody else would reply and reflect back what they think they'd heard. The originator of that problem, who described it in the first place, would say, you've only got a 2 there, you've only got a 3, you need to try that again. And it would become a little bit of a kind of a bit of fun, to be honest, a bit like a real game. And lots of people would get to the point where they saw it as a real challenge to get to the bullseye. So I hope yourselves that you will see that this is very much an authentic approach. So you are genuinely wanting to listen to the other person and seek first to understand and then be understood yourself. But also, some of you who may be a bit more competitive can see it as give yourself a bit of motivation to try and get to that bullseye with everyone that you communicate with, because you're going to be clearer then about where they're coming from and where you're coming from, and then you will dissolve potential conflict, which is just wonderful. So there's lots of ways you can be really direct about it and say, come on, give me a 1, give me a bullseye, or come on, give me a 2, or you can do better than that, you know. I don't suggest you necessarily do that within your personal relationships, because you're going to be talking about much more emotive subjects. So you need to use the more subtle approach and just say, okay, so thank you for sharing that with me. What I think I've heard you say is this. Let me know if I've got that right, with a lot more compassion. So finally, what I'd like to talk to you about is being proactive with this. So you're going to create the habit, you're going to practice it with your friends and family first, and then use it in a compassionate way within your personal relationship. But finally, I'd like to give you an analogy of when I have used it with my son. So he is 17, and he's certainly been through that teenage kind of behaviour, if you like, where when I converse with him, he doesn't give me eye contact, which is really frustrating, and I should imagine some of you who may have children will understand that. So when I speak to him and I'm giving him an instruction, so for example, if he needs to pack his bag ready for a weekend away, he will be on the PlayStation not looking at me. And I will ask him to look at me, and he'll look at me for a second, and then I'll continue giving the instruction, and I won't be confident that he's really heard me. So I will quite directly, because I'm in the parenting role and it's appropriate at this stage, I will say, I'd like you to reply back to me and reflect back what you think I've just asked you to do. And I would do it in that kind of tone, in quite a firm way, but also because I know the motivation behind this is so that he gets his bag packed, which helps me, but it also means that he's not rushing around at the last minute. So it's to the benefit of everyone. So that is another approach you can take at being quite direct. So if you do want to use this technique within other relationships, your children or family or friends, you can also use it in that way. But just do remember that your tone is really important to make sure it's appropriate for the role or the other person that you're communicating with. So the final thing is, what's wonderful about this dartboard communication technique is you will start to notice that those people you use it with will start to mirror your behaviour, and they may well start to ask you about, what is this technique you're using? It seems really good. I'd like to use it too. So you'll be able to share this knowledge with others, a nice ripple effect. And you know, my son has actually started to use that technique, I've noticed a little bit. He wouldn't admit it, but it's really great that you can start to see people mirroring your own behaviour and this lovely tool for communication. So I do hope this has been interesting. Do refer to the picture that I've included in this video, and practice. Get that really great habit in place with familiar people, friends and family that you feel comfortable with, and then inject this lovely model into your personal and intimate relationships with that lovely compassion, active listening, and an open, gentle heart.